when you answer questions about Jesus for people, you're doing a couple things. One, you're providing direct relevance. You're demonstrating the relevance to the person who's visiting to your site. It's not about me, the church. It's all of a sudden about you, the person who's visiting my site. What questions do you have? How can we help you? Second is when you answer it in thoughtful ways, especially ways that the culture hasn't answered it or other churches aren't voicing them, then you set yourself as an authority, as a place for, if I have questions about faith and spirituality and Christianity, then this is a safe place that I can go to. It sets up your authority. And when you do that across multiple topics and that you do it over and over and over again, then you actually build trust with that audience. And those three things are so important to engage people, get people off of the internet into a personal relationship with you offline.
Hey, welcome to Season 3, Episode 13 of the Missional Marketing Podcast. My name is Bart Blair. I am the co-host of the show, and it's my privilege to welcome you to this week's episode. If you're new to the show, we want to let you know that the reason we do this is to help your church grow by leveraging digital marketing and effective communications in your church. So regardless of what seat you sit in on the bus of your church staff team, maybe you're a solo pastor, or maybe you're the communications director in a larger church, or maybe you're a volunteer in your church just trying to help your church get better at its communications and its marketing. We hope that you find this podcast to be helpful. Make sure that you subscribe wherever you're listening on your favorite podcasting app. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, make sure you not only subscribe, but that you ring the bell so that you get notified when new episodes are released. We aim for every Friday, and most of the time we make it. And we don't want you to miss any of the great content that we've created in the past. Make sure you check out the archives if you are new to the podcast. This year, especially Season 3, we've had just some remarkable conversations about some of the new trends and things that are helping churches in their communications and in their marketing in what we might call the post-pandemic. I'm not really sure what your COVID-19 eschatology is, but wherever we are in the process of the pandemic and churches coming back and people coming back, we produced some really great content, had some really great interviews with people this year that have really helped us move the needle in our communications and in our marketing. Today, our guest is the venerable Kenny Jahng. I think this is the third time that Kenny has been on the podcast. Kenny has recently stepped into the role of leading an organization called Church Tech Today. They have a website, a blog, tons of content, and are doing consulting for churches to help churches build a better tech stack. You don't know what that means, do you? I didn't either. What is a tech stack? Well, watch or listen to this podcast, and Kenny will explain to us what a tech stack is, okay? But that's not the purpose of this podcast. The purpose of this particular episode is to talk about 5 critical things on your church website, things that may make or break the difference between someone checking out your website and deciding to watch an online service, and even better, coming to an in-person service. Isn't that our goal? Our goal is to connect with people online, move them along a journey to where they want to meet with us in person, to actually build incarnational relationship with them so that we can help them discover Jesus and grow in a relationship with Jesus. That's the goal. So these 5 critical things for your church website are going to be very practical. Some of them are probably things that you are aware of already, but maybe as a whole package, it will help you look at your website through a different set of lenses and do better at connecting with people online. So without any further delay, again, we appreciate you tuning into the show today. Here's the CEO of Missional Marketing, Jason Hamrock, and our interview with Kenny Jahng.
Kenny, welcome back to the podcast. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Always better when I'm with you guys.
Yeah, it's so good to see you, man. You are a welcome guest. Not even a guest. You're kind of like a brother. Welcome on the show because you have so much insight.
Is that or like the unwanted, the guy from the, down the hall in the dorm that just somehow is always in your room?
It's my crazy cousin Kenny. Yes. Who we'll let him out every once in a while to play, but for the most part, we try to keep him locked out.
He shows up in your dorm room all the time. But he's always really insightful. He's got a lot of good stuff to talk about. So that's why we bring you on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you on. I am excited about our conversation today, but I'd love for you to update the audience on what you've been up to. What's Kenny been up to lately?
I feel like the soundbite it's been Revenge of the Nerds, right? Back in the day, church online pastors were at the bottom of the pile, and now everyone wants to learn about digital engagement. And so that's literally been the focus in this season. And it's been amazing to see so many ministries and pastors just really want to learn. And that learning posture, I think, is back. At least that's what I sense, this enthusiasm for, hey, we've got so many opportunities in front of us. And so my latest focus has been churchtechtoday.com. Our team recently took it over and using that as a platform, as a learning laboratory to really help churches build that perfect tech stack and see what they can do. God has gifted us with digital. And I always say the Holy Spirit works in pixels, and we have to honor that. God's a creator. And why not use our websites and all the digital tools that we've got in front of us to help further the gospel? So anyway, and it's basically the name of your company, Missional Marketing. I mean, that's literally what we're able to do today. So I'm excited about that.
Okay, so
can I ask you a quick question? You said this before, you used this term before we started recording, and you just used it just now. What is a tech stack? When you say you want to help churches build a tech stack, can you, for the dummies in the room like me, what is a tech stack?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much jargon right out there. Back in the day before I went to seminary, I used to work in the marketplace, and I was a partner in a .com incubator, those venture capitalists, et cetera, in the tech startups area. Tech stack is just the term talking about all the different pieces that you have in your toolkit to accomplish your operations, your mission, et cetera. So sometimes you have a marketing tech stack, you have an operational tech stack. So we're talking about, what do you use for collaboration? Do you use Microsoft Teams? Do you use Google Docs and the Google Suite? Do you use Zoom for video conferencing? What do you use for email marketing, for your church management software? So all those different pieces, everyone is basically pulling together jigsaw puzzles of their own, right? And a lot of times you got missing pieces. You don't even know that certain pieces exist. And so building a tech stack so that everything's efficient. And I like to say what we need to do today in the church is to honor technology, respect it, but not overuse it or use it in the wrong ways. The right way is to understand that we have the opportunity to use technology to scale personal relationships. It's not to replace personal relationships. It's to help us scale personal relationships for being a herald for the gospel. And so
that's huge.
Tech stack is just part of that. It's just, what do we use as a team in our church across all the different disciplines of marketing, communications, et cetera, so that we can actually be better together.
Okay. Before we get into, we're going to talk about like 5 critical things that are going to help your church website. But before we go there, I want just briefly, so churchtechtoday.com, churchtechtoday.com. If I go to churchtechtoday.com, what am I going to see? What am I going to experience? Why should I go there?
Yeah. So over this last year, we've been evolving the content. It used to be, I think, really focused on the guys that are the roadies at a church, doing the setup, the guys wearing black, with the gaff tapes and rolling up the extension cords, people in the sound booth. But I think this COVID has changed everything, that everyone has gotten their hands dirty with digital. And so now I think the question is, how do we empower more churches to really figure out how to use all the digital tools, software, et cetera? So part of it is discovery, right? I think, like, Bart, you might not know the term tech stack, and you might not know that certain categories of things exist. I think there needs to be a safe place, a resource that you can come and learn and discover and try things out and learn from peers. I think one of the things that's great about the church is that we're so collaborative, right? Your organization, my organization, we trade notes all the time. We're here on a podcast together, trying to educate our audiences together. And so I think that's what I hope Church Tech is going to be. Church Tech Today hopefully will be a place where you can come and learn about different tools, software, hardware, et cetera, and then strategies on how to deploy them. Again, how to scale personal relationships in the name of ministry and the gospel.
Okay, so users go to churchtechtoday.com, bookmark it.
Yes.
Can I also subscribe to receive your content?
Absolutely. Again, and
Look who you're talking. Look who you're talking to.
I know, but I got to throw it out there.
The king of lead generators. I'm sure there's a lead generator somewhere on there.
Yeah.
This is one of those things. We are now trying to find what are the things that church leaders really want to learn about.
Yeah.
And then try to build, and that's a jargon term too, a lead generator. It's a resource that churches should actually try to figure out how to develop for their own use.
That's
but it's
right.
a resource that you can offer your audiences on the internet, that they would in turn give you their contact information and permission to have conversations going forward so that you can nurture them to become raving fans for your mission and join your community. And so that's what we're doing. Yes. So the first one is we've got, we're launching actually this month a whole comprehensive guide to texting companies. Texting is something that every church should embrace, but it's bewildering to everybody if you haven't been using texting for your church. And so we've got a guide where we have dozens of texting companies that we've profiled, pros and cons, comparison chart, articles, etc. So that's like one example of the things that you can pick up at churchtechtoday.com.
All right, go do it. Okay, let's get into the content here. So there's an article, 5 critical things about your website. Let's talk about that. Let's go through those 5 critical things and we'll go out one at a time. The first one is information about Jesus. Explain that.
Look at this. We have websites galore all over the place. But if I visited 10 churches in your zip code, my question right now is challenging to church leaders is, do you actually have information about Jesus? If I was curious or asking questions about faith and religion and Christianity and Jesus, do you actually have information there that will actually serve me where I am? Or do you require me to come in person and sit in a captive room where you lock the door and talk to me for an hour straight and people are standing up, putting up their hands, clapping and all this? Do you actually require me? It's like a bait and switch, right? Sometimes where I want to learn about Jesus. I'm going to a church because that's where I should be going to learn about Jesus. But when I get to the website, you don't have all the resources there that can actually disciple me, that actually brings me along. So that's one of my pet peeves. Can we actually go to your website and actually have some of the basic questions about Jesus, about faith, so that it helps equip me right there without having to attend, without having to sign up for a small group, without having to come to you and your building? How do we do that? And so I feel like that's something, it's easy to casually dismiss, but it's a big aha moment for a lot of churches.
I look at a lot of church websites and I'm amazed. I find all kinds of things about baptism.
Yes.
Well, there's something that comes before baptism. I mean, I'm just saying. Okay. And that's just how to have a relationship with Jesus. Oh, and then the first thing I should do is go get baptized. So you are spot on with that.
Right. Usually you have a statement of belief page, right? Mm-hmm. So you just rattle down Bible verses and little things from systematic theology that you learned in seminary. The average person in culture who just clicked over from Netflix or YouTube or some other site has no idea. That's too deep. That's too quick. So how do you do it in a way that makes them feel comfortable and answers their basic questions?
Yeah.
There's so much you can do in that area.
There's a ton that you can do in that area, but can you describe for me what you would see as a simple deliverable for an information about Jesus page? If Community Church of Greater Cleveland called you tomorrow and said, Kenny, we're going to hire you to develop this page for us, where would you lead them? What kind of content would you have on that page? What would that look like?
Yeah, so actually, I would actually point them to you guys. One of the things that you guys do is that you've developed meaningful content that answers felt needs with a biblical lens and worldview, whether it be about anxiety or anger or relationship conflicts or raising, parenting children. There's so many different topics that you're basically just trying to answer questions that people in your community. So if you're in a suburban community, that might be different questions versus in a rural community or an urban city center. And so there's these questions. Think FAQs about Jesus, FAQs about religion, the what's in it for me? Why should I be coming to church? Why? Because there's this thing about Jesus, this person, Jesus. Who is Jesus? That's where I would start. And there's tons of resources out there that you can use that you don't need to create from scratch. I'll give you one example is the Bible Project, right? The Bible Project has created so many great explainer videos that are completely free to use for churches that you can actually embed videos and tell stories about Jesus on your website. And then this, again, I'll go back to the resources that you guys have that you've actually built, copywritten, SEO'd, all that kind of stuff that I've optimized. And more importantly than all that other stuff, answers questions that people are actually asking about Jesus. Those are the types of things that you have. I think you have over 70, 80 pages worth of stuff.
Yeah, we do.
That you guys can work with churches to help put on their site and then answer questions and bring people in. I think that, to me, when you do that, when you answer questions about Jesus for people, you're doing a couple things. One, you're providing direct relevance. You're demonstrating the relevance to the person who's visiting to your site. It's not about me, the church. It's all of a sudden about you, the person who's visiting my site. What questions do you have? How can we help you? Second is when you answer it in thoughtful ways, especially ways that the culture hasn't answered it or other churches aren't voicing them, then you set yourself as an authority, as a place for, if I have questions about faith and spirituality and Christianity, then this is a safe place that I can go to. It sets up your authority. And when you do that across multiple topics and that you do it over and over and over again, then you actually build trust with that audience. And those three things are so important to engage people, get people off of the internet into a personal relationship with you offline. So anyway, that's the starting point. Let's start with Jesus. Let's answer questions. Let's not complicate it. Just start asking questions and answering them online.
Yeah. And I don't think the answer is a 6-page single-spaced, document about Jesus. You've got to design it so it's reader-friendly and bite-sized chunks. And if you want to go deeper, you click the little button and it it goes down so you can go deeper if you want. But Absolutely. Boy, you are so right. Oh man, that's, by the way, when you add that information in there, it gets SEO'd and organically you can start rising up in the organic search results when someone's searching for Jesus, which is awesome.
Yes.
Okay. That's a good one. That should be number one. Hello. It should be number one.
Hey, Bart Blair here. I'm the producer of Missional Marketing's Church Growth Interviews podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. At Missional Marketing, we're passionate about helping churches reach more people for Jesus online. And one of the ways that we do that is by helping churches acquire more new visitors to their website utilizing the Google Ad Grant. Google offers qualifying nonprofits, including churches, up to $10,000 a month in advertising. That means that you, as a church, could be using Google as one of your primary digital outreach strategies to communicate the gospel and reach more people in your community. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website at missionalmarketing.com and click the link at the top of the page that says Google Grants. We'd love an opportunity to partner with you in your mission to build God's kingdom here on earth. Well, thanks again for listening to our podcast. And now back to the show.
Let's talk about the next one, About Us. Talk to us about the About Us page.
Yeah. Again, most websites have an About Us page. We all know that. But do you actually do the job of what people expect in an About Us? Are you actually meeting that objective? So do you have a really good, crisp way of explaining to someone why your church exists, specifically in that town, what you care about, what's your ministry approach, how are you trying to help redeem the culture in your town, in your zip code, and who are the people that are actually leading the different ministry areas for those things? People have relationships with people. They don't have relationships with institutions. And so you have to humanize as quickly as possible the things that you're doing in the community for the community. And so I think that's just one of those things in terms of positioning. And I'm biased because I'm a story brand certified consultant, but that to me is you got to position everything for them, for the community. It's not about us should not be, we're so big, we have this many people, this is what we do. Our building has a huge parking lot. It's not about us like that. Really, it's about them. We call it About Us, but it's an invitation for them to join the story together on our mission together. So anyway, there's so many different ways that you can go with that.
I would add on.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause there for a second. Your About Us page should be an invitation for them to join us in our story. And that's usually the About Us page is a brochure. It's a digital brochure about how awesome we are and what we offer you rather than rather than trying to connect with you where you are and inviting you along in the process there. Love that, Kenny.
When I think
the old paradigm is the ABC church, right? It's all about us. It's the holy huddle. We don't care about you. It's the holy huddle. It's attractional. You need to come to me. You need to look at me. You need to listen to me. B is all about the building. You just need to come to our building, to our activities. We don't come to you. Anything outside of our parking lot is not church, right? Like if you're in the community, it's not church. And then C is once we get you here and lock the doors, it's all about C, cashola. We want your cash to build our building and programs. No, that's the old model. We got to abandon the ABC church model.
Yeah, I'll add on top of that. When I think about us, it's usually about our staff and about our leader and about our elder board. Who cares? I want to know about the congregation. Are those my people? And what are you doing that shows me interest in terms of serving the community and being outwardly focused and friendly? And there's things for you and your family to engage here and get help to whatever the felt need issue is. Maybe it's faith, maybe it's marriage, whatever it is. That's your About Us page. In fact, I don't even really like using About Us because it's just like, it's almost as worse as I'm putting my mission statement on the homepage.
Yes. Now you need all that stuff, right? That stuff needs to be on your site or maybe even in that section, but it needs to be framed and positioned. Yeah. Like you need a staff page. You need a bio about the leadership and the pastor, et cetera. But that's not the only thing, right? Yeah. I think the big paradigm shift to help someone craft a better About Us section really is stop assuming people's interest and then start demonstrating and explaining why our church matters. Yeah. That's a huge paradigm shift. But if you can adopt that a little bit of a shift in perspective, it helps you write and produce content that's so much more engaging and gives you traction with the visitors. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Third one is stranger-friendly invitations. Yes. Go. So churches love saying, we have a first-time guest team or first-time visitor. We call them connection cards and all that. At the end of the day, it's intimidating to go into a church, especially if you're alone. Yeah. You are a bunch of strangers to somebody else that's coming in. You're not friends. They're not guests in your, like, they don't know who you are. Right? There is a step before they become your guest that you both are strangers to each other. So how do you make it stranger friendly? How do you make something that inviting or that safe to remove the risk so that the person who visits your church for the first time, who doesn't know anybody, is actually going to feel comfortable? That's a very, very big ask, right? Mm-hmm. That's very, very hard. But I do think that if you can actually work with the teams internally and really stress test everything that you're doing for external audiences to make them stranger friendly, then things change. Growth really can happen once that happens. I love that. I mean, because I think it is super intimidating to, if you're in a new community or there's a reason why you're going to a church for the first time. It could be a divorce situation. It could be I'm having some serious issues. It could be I'm new to whatever it is, right? You're walking. I mean, how often do you walk into a brand new building like a gym or something like that and you don't know anybody, right? It's intimidating, right? You just kind of stay to yourself. So I'm with you 100%. We have to be really help our congregation understand we're here to love on people and be very welcoming and remove that barrier to entry as much as possible. Absolutely. Now, I will say one example that you can think through is usually when parents are bringing their kids for the first time and say you're churched, you know that there's a kids program and you know you're going to leave them alone. So what happens? The kid is the stranger. The parent is then talking them through what to expect. Don't worry. I'm only going to be 2 doors down. Yeah. There's going to be 3 people that's going to be able to help. You're always going to be able to find somebody. You're going to find other kids that are your age, right? You're talking your child through all the things that remove that risk, increases confidence that it's going to be okay. How do we do that with everybody else? Big people. Yes. Yeah. The big people in the room.
I think that, one of the hardest things for churches, and I think this applies to every one of these 5 critical things for a church website, but I think it's in particularly of importance when we talk about an invitation. And that is, we have to run everything through the filter of our unchurched neighbor and the person that we would like to see come to our website and come to our church. And we don't do that very well. We use insider language, we use insider terminology. And you made a statement earlier. Maybe this is part of your story brand indoctrination, but you said don't assume that you know what people want or what they're looking for. And I think that when we're extending an invitation, look, here's the reality. If everybody in my neighborhood was looking for a church to attend, I've got 2 churches at the end of the street, and those 2 churches would be full on Sunday morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're not, because the vast majority of the people in my neighborhood and in my community are not looking for a church to attend.
Yes.
But there are other things that they are looking for. And so what I need to do as a church leader is try to figure out what it is that they're looking for so that I can create opportunities to intersect with them and invite them into those things, invite them into those processes or those relationships or those things that are going to serve them where they are. Most people in America today are not looking for a place to go sing a few songs that they don't know.
With strangers.
In a giant karaoke bar and listen to some guy talk to them about some theological things that they're not even sure if they believe or not. Most people aren't looking for that, but they are looking for something. And Google is proof of that, right? Jason and I talk about this with churches all the time. If you want to know what people in your community are looking for, just go look at the Google data of what people are searching in your community, in your neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And if you're not providing answers incarnationally for the questions that they're asking, that they're trying to DIY on Google and YouTube, you will forever be irrelevant to them.
Yes.
I will stop there.
Now, this stranger-friendly posture, I think, is my rant against churches for their ministry philosophy. But we're talking about websites. The website is the perfect place that you can nerd out and talk ad nauseum about all these little things that you might not do from the stage, you might not do externally in an ad. You could this is where your blog comes in. This is where your social media comes in. Yeah. You could answer all those questions that people have in their minds that you want to get out there, but it's not efficient to do it in different areas, but you can do it through content marketing.
I had an idea for a church I was talking to the other day, and they were talking about building the ultimate Christmas page. And I thought, if I was, because you might go to church. So if I was going to go to that church, I might want to experience like what Christmas is like there. Plus, I'd probably want to read some kind of review about the church.
Yes.
Right. And I thought, well, what if you actually had either testimonials or reviews on your church website, not just on Google or Facebook or Yelp?
Absolutely.
Right. And churches never do that. I'm going, why not? And it's one thing for the pastor to talk about. I mean, he gets paid to talk about how good the church is. So don't go there. Use somebody that's in your congregation that I might relate to. Right. And have a situation.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jason. That feels a little cringy, but we don't hesitate to get people to share their story about how Jesus has impacted their life or changed their life, or being connected in a certain ministry has impacted them. And so I don't think that there's anything wrong with, if your church puts on a fall festival, if your church has a Christmas Eve service, or your church is doing something that's outreach oriented, to have people who have been a part of it and experienced it, maybe either as a volunteer or as just a general participant, to have them share their story, whether on video or in print on the website. I think that's a really cool idea.
Even if it's just a soundbite. I love my church. I mean, our family loves coming here. We've met so many people and we've got connected. And my kids are different now. That's it. I mean, if you had that as a soundbite, that would almost encourage me. I'm going to go check that out. If their kids like it, I mean, my kids might like it. Right.
In e-commerce, we have something we call a wall of love. So sometimes it's a page that's literally just a wall of testimonials, screenshots of comments from social media or from emails, sentences that you screenshot and put into there. And you can organize those on different categories. E-commerce sites do that all the time, but it's not done for churches. And I don't know why. And there's a difference between testimonials and case studies. You need to have both. Testimonials, right? They actually point to the ministry fronts and your ministry approach and what you guys are doing, those programs, and they talk about that, and actually it undergirds the authority that you guys have. Case studies talk through the experience that I went through a small group, or my child went through the K-5 program for the Sunday school program, and it talks about specific elements of that you use. That actually provides relevance to new prospective visitors to the church. So you need both, but testimonies are so easy to garner, especially from your community. Yeah. It's just one of those things I feel like, oh man, if you just sent out one survey, right, to your congregation, you would be able to get dozens of them immediately.
Yeah. Right.
Check that off. It's done this week.
We just added a sixth critical thing that websites need, church websites need, and that is a wall of love. We need a wall of love. Okay, let's get back on track here. What's the next one on our list, Jason?
It is goes right into it. Plan a visit page.
Yeah. So one of these things that we hope that prospective visitors do, we gear our content for it, but then we actually never help them actually do it. And so, what's the purpose of the website? Most of the times, one of the core priorities is to get people to visit, to make that decision to visit. And it's just logical that, hey, if you're ready to actually come this Sunday or next Sunday or the following Sunday, if you're ready to bring your family, why don't we just help you a little bit further? So plan your visit. And it could be practical things, such as some churches, their kids ministry needs check-in or registration data for safety reasons, etc. You can get that get that done now before they actually, have to sit in the lobby and fill out paperwork. Right. There can be things like, help you decide which campus to go to if you're a multi-site. There's so many different questions that you can actually help make that decision in a micro commitment, and most importantly, receive some information with permission to send them some reminders, some nudges, and potentially some connection points even before they get to church, right? How might we pray for you? Maybe there's a call that you offer that says, hey, we'd love to get on the phone for 10 minutes and pray with you. The likelihood for someone to visit your church after you pray with them, or even just send a voicemail back, that's been a tactic that I've seen work very, very well. We're on a plan your visit form. You ask for a prayer request, and you simply send back an audio recording of you praying for them and their need and the request. And then you have the opportunity to be able to say, hey, I'd love to meet you in person. I'd love to make sure you have a VIP experience on Sunday. Is there anything else I can do? Can I help you with your kids? Can I help you with parking, right? All that kind of stuff. So anyway, a plan your visit page or module or something to really explicitly help them do that is something that every church website should be doing.
It's interesting that I think is really, like you said, it's really intimidating to come to a church for the first time, especially if you're de-churched or unchurched, but you're like, I'm going to go do this. I actually think it's almost better to say when you're ready, but before then, watch online, get comfortable with us. We want to answer questions, engage with us online. I've got a church that we work with that recently added to their connection card. How'd you find us? Like a friend, I drove by or whatever. They added another bullet that says, I've been attending online and now I've come in person. And we're finding that more people are checking that box, which is just indication that people will watch you for a season. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that, to say, hey, your plan of visit could be, you're going to sit on your couch and visit. That's totally cool, right? And get information, get comfortable. And then when you're ready, get in your car and drive on over on Saturday or Sunday. And I think we have to give people that permission.
Absolutely.
I think that, there's something about that I think we've lost culturally in the church that makes a lot of sense. Most people who are sports fans, I'll use sports as an example, because every Sunday afternoon in this time of year here in the fall, there are football stadiums all across the country that are filled with literally hundreds of thousands of people who have paid millions of dollars in money to buy tickets to go there, and then will spend millions more on merchandise and refreshments and whatever. Most, if not all of those people started by watching a team online.
Yes, absolutely.
On TV. They became a fan of the team, watching that team on TV, and it culminates in needing to go and have that experience in person. Now, granted, if you're dropping $1,000 on, sports tickets, there are some people, I guess, that buy season tickets to some sports teams, and that's what we're looking at. But I think that there's a natural progression. I've been to bookstores, to book signings for authors.
Yes.
I've never known anyone to go to a book signing and get an author to sign a book before they've actually read that author's books. You read the books first, you get to know them, and then you want to go see them in person. And I think the same thing is true in that whole transformational process of connecting with people online, inviting them to check us out, inviting them to kick the tires. I heard a guy who does book launches for authors say, you're asking people to come and make a decision as to whether or not you're a good fit for them before you ask them to actually transact. And the transaction for us is that in-person visit. So checking out the website, watching an online service, following us on social media, that's all part of that person's process of trying to decide if your church is a good fit for them. I think that when people do that and they show up on a Sunday morning, they're more likely to get engaged and get connected incarnationally a lot faster because they've already decided that you're probably a good fit for them. They're going to fill out, how many times I've heard pastors and church leaders say, well, we mention to people every single week that we want them to fill out the connection card, but nobody ever fills out the connection card. Well, that's because they're on their first Sunday. They're not going to fill out that connection card. They haven't decided yet if you're a good fit for them and whether or not this is going to be their church. But when they've been through that journey online, I think it actually expedites that process.
I kind of like the idea of season ticket holder for churches. That's pretty good. But you buy a year-long pass and you have to pay a tithe for that.
See if we can market that. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, let's get to the last one. And this is one of my favorite ones. Have an active blog. Talk about the benefits.
Oh, I mean, in this day and age right now, should be a no-brainer. Look, we know that I just had this example with a client of mine that we're coaching. We were talking about how much energy and effort they put into publishing for their Facebook page. And then what happened a couple of years ago? Facebook Zero happened. Facebook explicitly is telling people that if you have a page, we're not going to show it to, if you have 1,000 followers who opt in and say, I want to see information about that page. They're explicitly going to say, no, we're not going to show it to you. We're actually going to bring that down to 10%, 7%, 5%. And actually, it's eventually going to go to zero, and you're going to have to pay to actually show it to them. And not only that, you'll never be able to pay enough to show it to that entire list of people who raise their hand. Social media, rented spaces always changes the rules, and they're not your rules. You need a place where you can bring people back and actually have a place that you control. And this is what Google rewards over and over and over again, that you actually, I can tell you that I can't tell you how many times where if you have a local site talking about local issues and using keywords and phrases and referring to local other things in your town, that you will be able to be elevated in the ranks for social and search when people actually search for that stuff, because it's so easy to do relative to everybody else. So anyway, a church blog is definitely something that you have to invest in. The art of writing forces people to actually clarify their message. I think that you should have your entire staff contribute an article every single month. One person, one article across your entire staff. Everyone should be able to talk about something that's relevant to people who are considering coming to church for the first time.
When I have this conversation with churches, they literally say that, I don't have time to write a blog. And I say, well, you don't have to. You have 52 of them.
Yes.
They're like, what? You preach on Sunday, right? Somebody preaches on Sunday. So turn that sermon into a blog.
Absolutely.
The service we offer churches. But I'm going, you take that 3,000 words that was preached and you turn it into about 1,000-word, very helpful DIY blog. Hello, you don't have to actually originate the content. It's already been created.
Yes.
And they're like, I never thought of that. Like, yeah. And then you can put that sermon on that page, have some snippets on that page, have a gated content piece for a download on that page. Come on, man. It's not that hard.
And talk about the relevance, right? I mean, Jason, think about it. What's a sermon? A sermon is what the people need to hear that week. The people in your zip code want to hear that week. the words are relevant to the people in your zip code.
Yep.
That's definitely square one, right?
That's right.
You're a content machine. The church is a content machine by definition. That's square one. Use your sermons, and I would argue you shouldn't just publish your entire sermon as is. You have the ability to slice and dice. Most sermons, hey, you got the Tim Keller 3-point sermon, break it up into 3 different articles.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And you may have like guest speakers, so don't use them, but that's where you use the stat. Like you could have like 12, once a month, have 12 blogs plus, there's 40 or 50 or whatever. You got it. That'll be a really robust SEO machine that you're putting on your website. That's going to help people. Yeah.
I think it is important to note that, SEO and the blog is a long play. The short-term benefit of having an active blog is that you can regularly, consistently provide content that can be repurposed for social media, can be used in your electronic newsletter, and can engage your local church body. We work with churches where we help them actually run ads towards some of the written content that's on their website. But the SEO content, it's a long-term play. And it's interesting. I was actually on a call with a church earlier this week. It's a relatively, I'll call it a normal size Southern Baptist church in a semi-rural part of Virginia, church of maybe a couple hundred people. They're trying to make an impact in their community. They're not trying to be a worldwide global ministry. But as I was reviewing the analytics on their website with them this last week, the second most visited page on their website was a blog post written in 2018, which was a summary of a sermon from 4 years ago. And the pastor that I'm talking to is like, well, I don't understand why there's so many people going to that page. I mean, that's like 4 years old. And I'm like, exactly. That's the way SEO works. People are Googling this particular topic, and Google has decided that your blog post from 2018 is an authoritative article on that particular topic. I've used this example for years and years, but if you Google the history of the Easter egg, Chase Oaks Church in Plano, Texas, wrote a blog post about 3 or 4 years ago, and Google has decided that blog post on Chase Oaks Church website is one of the most important articles on the entire internet about the history of the Easter egg. And every single month, they are getting thousands of new visitors to their website on a blog post written 4 years ago on a topic that people just have a curiosity about. What's the history of the Easter egg? Why? And of course, needless to say, around Easter time, that's like the top visited page on your church website.
Yep.
Now, I will say though, it's a long-term play, but Google's if you're consistent in publishing, Google pays attention to everything you put out. And so I'll just give an example. On Church Tech Today, we just published an article, things to have in your church sound booth or your media booth. And within hours, they ranked it #1. So if you actually Google things to have in your church sound booth or things to have in your church media booth, because we were talking to a pastor and he's like, there's so many things that I need a checklist because I keep forgetting, like batteries and cords and stuff like that. And so we just wrote an article. Within hours, it rose to #1. I think you should try it now. Google things to have in your church sound booth. And I think it's still in the top 2, 3, if not #1. And Google changed the search, but it's within hours. And it's the same thing. I think if you're publishing consistently, your trust goes up with Google that says, oh, I should pay attention to this website. Yeah. And especially if it's local content, if you're talking about local things, I do think that you have the ability to have traction for any. I'm talking about like in the context of if you have an event coming up, right? We can write about it today. We're doing this in the October, November timeframe. You could write about Easter so that it comes up in Easter, but you could talk about Christmas. You could talk about something that's even Thanksgiving at this time and still get results. So short term, it's definitely long term, yes, but you can get some pretty immediate results if you get into the habit and discipline of publishing regularly. You guys know that, right? Yep.
Okay, let's wind this down. Great information, really good points there. Tell us again. Go to churchtechtoday.com. But how can people get a hold of you, Kenny, if they've got questions they want to chat with you?
Absolutely. So things change over time. Right now, the platform I'm choosing to live on first natively is Instagram. So if you look me up, Kenny Jahng at Instagram, also churchtechtoday.com on Instagram. We are actually investing in carousels and reels because that's working. So if you want to go to churchtechtoday.com, Church Tech Today on Instagram, you'll see what carousels are. And they're all summaries of great tips, etc. That's what your church should be doing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You could also find me on LinkedIn, and I'm heading over to TikTok next. And so that's where churches also should be thinking.
As soon as we get off this call, you're headed over to TikTok?
Literally right now.
Absolutely.
Well, Kenny, thank you so much, man. It's always a wealth of knowledge that comes out of you whenever we talk and get you on the podcast. So I really appreciate it.
It's always fun. Hopefully I'll get an invite back again one day.
Absolutely.
I didn't bite and chew off your ear too much.
Yeah, it's always a blast. Thanks so much for joining us today.